Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with Gambit and the X-Ternals number 4. This is part 37 of our Age of Apocalypse event, and this particular issue always grinds my gears. It's a good read, but there's going to be a spoiler that I have to show in order to explain why this book gets on my nerves so much. So with that said, print date on this was June 1995. And for the last 2 issues, the X-Ternals were in space in the Shi'ar Empire to get a part of the M'Kraan crystal so that they could try to warp reality back to what it's supposed to be. That's why in Generation Next they had to go after Ileana Rasputin because of her teleportation and I guess reality-altering powers. Then the X-Ternals had to get the M'Kraan crystal. Excalibur, Nightcrawler has to get Destiny in order to verify Bishop's story, and then the 2 main X-books, Astonishing and Amazing, focus on the team. While all this is going on, they're still trying to save humans and trying to take down the calling pins. So that's kind of the whole focus of the books in a nutshell. And then we have like Factor X, which focuses on the villain's side of the story, and then X Universe, which focuses on the R616 heroes like the Avengers and whatnot, and how they fit into this. So with that said, last issue, again, spoiler alerts if you don't want to be spoiled here, pause this, go check out the review, read issue 3, and then come back. So you're back. In order for the X-Men, or the X-Ternals, to get back to Earth, Sunspot sacrifices himself. So Robert DaCosta is dead at this point. They are now in the sewers leading to the Xavier mansion, and we see these 2 silhouettes coming, and they see the destruction of Nanny. Now, if you remember from Amazing X-Men number 3, where Apocalypse infiltrated the mansion and took both Bishop and Magneto, Nanny protects Charles by putting him inside of her and heads off into the catacombs. Well, this is where we kind of pick up with that arc, and we see that Nanny has been destroyed. And so the 2 looking for Charles and find Nanny is Dazzler and Exodus, and I love this double page here. It is just absolutely beautiful, dynamic, and the characters look great. So this is called The Maze, brought to you by Fabian Nikizia, writer, Salvador LaRoque, penciler, Al Milgram inks, Chris Ianopoulos doing the lettering, Marie Yavins doing the colors, Bob Harris as the mouse. So the X-Men are just kind of wondering, where's Charles? What's going on? And that kind of leaves you, that sort of opens up the stakes and the drama and the suspense of the book. And then what happens in the whole overarch of this book is Richter coming back to Apocalypse and explaining what has happened, and Apocalypse is nowhere near happy with him. And for good reason too. So we kind of get a then now type story. We follow Gambit and Leela Cheney, who are trying to distract Richter away from Guido, Strong Guy, and Jubilee, who have the M'Kraan crystal shard and the baby. So those 2 are trying to make it back to Westchester, while these 2 just kind of give chase to Richter. And this is again why Richter's in hot water with Apocalypse. Because there's nothing but and like what's the problem with Richter, and he's still one of my favorite characters, but he's always been a hothead. So in this universe, he's wanting to move his station up in the Infinites and whatnot, and he lets his hatred for Gambit blind him to what he thinks his master truly wants. And yeah, he's just, you can see here where he's like, where is it at? He goes, what you don't know is that no matter where they go, I'll still be able to track them down. You hear me? You lose either way, LeBeau. I will arrest you. I will cuff you and throw you down at the feet of Apocalypse himself, and he'll smile upon me. And then he'll give me everything that I deserve. So you can see the hubris, the sheer hubris of this guy. And yeah, so as he's explaining this to Apocalypse, I like the fear in his face. And the Apocalypse is like, you thought wrong. It's like, while you were running off in the search of a petty thief, a child escaped who had in her possession the means to alter the face of this entire universe. And so you start to see this big man jackboot, sweating in fear. And this is where we see Jubilee running in the catacombs with Charles, and she's terrified. And I'm kind of glad that Nikezia here, because he knew these characters, because after Claremont left when the 90s bout hit, Nikezia was doing X-Force and X-Men at the time, so he knows these characters and knows kind of how they would think. And this is what I like about Jubilee. It goes, Gambit said, these tunnels go all the way to where the X-Men live. Some place called Worcestershire. Something or other. But I'm not the one who knows the way. Guido is. So at this point, her and Guido have been separated. And even though Jubilee's terrified, I'm glad that, she's thinking, she can't think of Westchester, so she's saying Worcestershire sauce. That made me laugh a little bit, but you can understand because she's still the youngest in the group compared to Generation Next in this universe, and she's terrified. And things start to happen. There's moving and shaking. And again, spoiler alert right here. So Sunspot sacrifices himself so his teammates can make it back to Earth. But what you come to find out here is that Guido's working for Apocalypse. He says, give me the crystal shard and Charles. And I like how Jubilee tries to hit him just point blank. Betraying us to Apocalypse ain't going to make Leela Cheney love you. Because as we find out in latter issues, and even in the main universe, Guido has a crush on Leela Cheney, but she does not feel that same way about him, and it hurts. It hurts him. And so once we get past the 3 pages of ads, Guido explains that he's not doing this because he wants to. He goes, I got no choice. About 2 months ago, I got caught. They planted a bug inside of me. They said we weren't important, but they wanted to keep tabs on us. If I tried to tell you guys or try to cut the thing out, it would have blown up and killed me. Killed us all. They promised if I cooperated, the rest of you wouldn't be hurt. Gambit was the only one they really wanted because he leads the X-Ternals. And so there's another moment between Apocalypse and Richter, and he's like, well, I didn't know this. He's trying to speak logic in a sense, but Apocalypse is not having it because he just kind of starts to see how Richter is wallowing in this story. And again, we go back to fights between Richter and Guido kind of makes his move on the scene. And yeah, it all kind of boils back down to Apocalypse interrogating Richter and talking about, Richter saying, my whole life has been in service to you. And it's like, and so too, Richter, shall your death. And the only thing you have lost in the process is your soul. Whew, gives you the chills because you kind of see how Richter wanted to move up and be this big bad guy, but because of his hubris, look what it cost him. He sold his soul to Apocalypse to step over the next guy, to kill this person, and even let his own blind hatred of Gambit get in the way of what he thinks his master would have wanted. So this was a good story. Now, again, the reason this book irks me so much is even though there's a moment of redemption with Guido, I love him. I loved him in the early X Factor. I know later he kind of goes bad, which is like, come on. But he's always been one of my favorite X Factor characters. So when I read this when I was younger, because I had a passing knowledge of X Factor, and now that I've read more later down the road, it still irks me to see him as a traitor. But again, like I said in our review yesterday, this is a twisted universe, and people do what they do to think that they need to survive. And again, that's kind of everyone kind of starting to play into the hand of Apocalypse, who in a sense are kind of weak-willed, and it hurts him, Richter, characters of that sort. But overall, nonetheless, an entertaining read. I really like the way Fabian Nicieza writes the X-Men. That's why after Claremont left, it was still entertaining because I liked the way Nicieza wrote the X-Men and the way he wrote X-Force along with Liefeld. So with that said, if you guys have enjoyed this issue, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and grab a copy. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate it if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. It helps the club channel more than you can possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little Gambit bell next to subscribe, That way, as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified and come to the channel, and we'd love to hear your feedback and talk with y'all down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with that said, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.